Hey guys, Meteorologist Chris Tomer here with this Sunday mountain weather update. We are right in the middle of this atmospheric river flow, and the snow continues across most of the resorts of the West right now. And we've still got two additional storm systems yet to go. This is Big Sky, 6 inches in the last 24 hours, doing really well. I've got at least 2 feet yet to go throughout this period. So you've got many powder days yet ahead. All right, down in northern Colorado, it snowed most of the day yesterday, last night on and off with high winds. This is Steamboat there in the northern mountains of Colorado. Here are the numbers, the stats on Steamboat. So Steamboat reporting 7 inches in the last 24 hours. You're up to 10 over the last 2 days, and you've got at least a foot of snow yet to go. And two storm systems coming through Colorado, especially the northern mountains being favored. It's probably going to be somewhere between 12 and 16 inches of additional accumulation up there in the Steamboat area. So doing really well. Off into Utah, this is Solitude Mountain there, and you can see some additional snow there. Let me see what the stats are for Solitude. Here they are. So 11 inches in the last 24 hours, 15 in the last 2 days, and you've got, I believe, and I'll show you, I'll drill down on Alta and Snowbird, Solitude, Brighton, but at least a couple of feet yet to go with two additional storm systems. It's a bit of a waiting game now because, as you'll see on radar, the plume has shifted away from you. It's up to the north into Idaho and really favoring Wyoming for a little while, but it's going to come back. So that's all in the forecast. Let's see, one more stop. I want to take you into, here's Breck. It's been very windy this morning up there with some on and off snow showers. Uh, and here are the numbers. This is peak 6 up there, 12,573. You can see the gusts overnight were up to 90, 99 miles per hour, and it's still very gusty up there this morning on top of the 10-mile range. Mentioned this yesterday, very high winds with this coming through across the west. You know, most places 50, 60, some places in Colorado 70, 80, 90 mile per hour gusts. So extremely windy with this. Here are my bullet points this morning, and then we'll go into radar. The Pineapple Express continues. There are two additional storm systems for most of the West that will help to entrain this moisture and then carry it through and lay it down in the form of feet of accumulation for California, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, and Utah. And the Sierra rain snow line is still a bit of an issue today, for sure. It's up around 8,500 to 9,000, maybe even higher at times. But beyond today, the snow level will gradually come down. And that's how we're going to pick up most of our accumulation. It's been very difficult up until now. And I figured that'd be the case with the very high rain snow line. But after today, we should have a little bit more of an efficient flow with colder air over the top of a lot of Tahoe and also Mammoth. Okay, let me take you back. I want to show you radar this morning. This will really help to put it all together. Here's radar across the west. Look at this giant plume, this fire hose of moisture coming out of northern California up through parts of Idaho, Sun Valley, Brundage going to get crushed with at least another 24 to 36 inches somewhere in there yet to go for those areas. You're right in line with this, and look where it's headed. Into the Tetons. I think you're reporting like another 7 overnight inches in Jackson. You've still probably got 3 feet yet to go with two additional storms. I mean, you can just see the flow coming. This is going to be a pretty big period coming up today, tonight, tomorrow morning. Tomorrow is going to be a big powder day in Jackson Hole, Grand Targhee, Yellowstone, nailed. Wind Rivers, nailed. Remember, I mentioned about 5 feet of snow for the Wind Rivers, and that's still in the forecast. So this is a great flow, and eventually this is going to shift up and nail a lot of Big Sky and Bridgeable, and then it's going to come back down with those final two storm systems. Here it is. You can see it flowing into the Wyoming area, into the Tetons. It's really going to be heavy today, tonight, tomorrow morning. You can see how it's shifted away from Salt Lake and the Wasatch. It's a waiting game now. And Colorado still have that wind signature up over the Continental Divide, the high peaks. Still could squeeze out another inch, maybe 2 inches today up at Loveland, Winter Park, Longs Peak, Rocky Mountain National, those areas. In the Northeast, here comes our next storm system, our next clipper. And I've got light to moderate, like 3 different shots coming through with some pretty good accumulation for the Northeast over time. All right, I really liked this one yesterday. Had some nice feedback on this too. So again, this is precipitatable, advected precipitatable water. In other words, moisture in the atmosphere in a vertical column. And this just really helps to highlight and track the atmospheric river. You can see it, the Pineapple Express, the greens stretching all the way back to Hawaii and getting pulled into and entrained into these storm systems, and it's rocking and rolling through California, and it gets carried into the interior. That's how we're just squeezing out so much snow. These storms are all juiced up with this flow. So pretty impressive to see this. These atmospheric rivers they mean business whenever they're in the forecast. And here's the integrated vapor transport forecast. And you can see we've got a few humps here, a few different ridges and peaks on this. So your next moderate intensity surge comes in 3, 4, another weak surge 4, 5, and another weak surge after that around 6, 6, 7, somewhere right in there. So we've got quite a bit of additional moisture yet to go with this setup. Okay, so we talked about the bullet points. Let me show you my timeline. I added in the Pacific Northwest here to include a lot of Whistler Blackcomb, Washington State, the High Cascades, the volcanoes in Oregon. So Big Sky, the Wasatch, Tetons, Colorado Interior, BC, the Pacific Northwest, Tahoe, and the Northeast. You can see the timeline here. I'm not going to go through all these dates, but these are the dates of best snow accumulation. So for example, in Big Sky, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, heavy accumulation. Um, and then heavy on 2.7 with the final batch, the final storm system. In the Wasatch, light today, it's really a waiting game for 2.5 and 2.7, heavy both times. Colorado, light to moderate today at times, especially on the Continental Divide, Front Range high peaks, light to moderate 2.5, and then your best snow is probably 2.7, 2.8 with the final storm system to come through with moderate to heavy accumulations, especially in the central to northern mountains, less south. Pacific Northwest, moderate today, light 2.3, 2.4, and then heavy 2.8, 2.9. Tahoe, it's moderate to heavy today, heavy on 2.4, heavy 2.6, 2.7, and both of those final two storm systems will be colder, like I said, with better snow accumulation. Northeast, several different chances at least. Okay, let's drill down. So this is Alta, Utah, forecast mediagram at about 9,000 feet. So you can see we've got a little bit of leftover snow here this morning, Sunday, February 2nd, and then it's dry the 3rd, dry most of the 4th. Now on the 5th, that's the next storm system, and then there's one more behind that as well. So when I say it's a waiting game, it really is. It's just light today and then a couple of days of waiting. Winds calm down with the waiting period, but then they ramp back up 30, 35, 40 miles an hour late on the 4th into the 5th. It's going to be a little bit warm here. Notice the high temperatures this afternoon, 34 at 9,000, 36 to 37 tomorrow at 9,000, and then it starts to cool, but 35 on Tuesday, and then it starts to turn colder with the next storm system. So that's a bit of an issue, the warmth with this Pineapple Express. All right, let me take you up to Wyoming. So this is the Jenny Lake corridor. This is about 8,600 feet. So anywhere from that corridor, Jackson Hole ski area, all the way up to the north side of the Grand Teton at about 8,600 feet. So this particular model squeezes out at least 40 inches between early on the 5th. So it snows all day today. Like I said, this is a very heavy period today, tonight, tomorrow morning. Tomorrow's going to be a big powder day, probably the biggest so far that we've seen with all of this accumulation. And then the next storm system comes in. Behind that, there's obviously a little bit of a break, but look at the winds. 50-mile-an-hour gusts pretty consistently here, 40 to 50, helping to drive this snow production. High temps at about 8,600 feet, about 30 today, 28 tomorrow, 28 the final day, and then on Wednesday, things would start to cool down. So it's a pretty warm flow, right? This is what you see often with the Pineapple Express. Here is the jet stream forecast. So what I'm looking for here, this is jet stream level winds at about 30,000 feet up in the atmosphere. I'm looking for the reds, the oranges, and the tans. You can see how that corresponds to the higher wind speeds and knots over here at jet stream level. That's what tends to steer the storm systems around, guide the moisture, produce some lift. So here we are. We'll start it at about 11 o'clock today. Let's move ahead in time. And the flow continues to stay very stable, favoring many of the same areas. Then, by the time we get into here's lunchtime on Tuesday, February 4th, starts to shift to the south. Here comes our next storm system coming out of California. This is the one that's going to roll right through Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and also Colorado. Here's late on the 4th. There it is. You can see the dip in the jet over the top of Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado. Now that moves through. Here's late on February 5th, Wednesday. Next storm right here. You can see it. Here's late on Thursday, February 6th. Look at the big trough, the big dip. This is the final storm system. This is early on Friday, February 2nd. And then that whole thing rolls through the Intermountain West. This is the final storm system. Here's early on Saturday, February 8th. And there it goes. And that might not be quite the end of the pattern, but certainly that's a hefty storm cycle right there. The pattern might remain active through a lot of February as it's looking right now, but this would be most likely the end of this particular storm cycle. We'll have to wait for it to reload. All right, total snow accumulation over time. So on this particular map, I'm looking at the different colors. So the light blues correspond to under 3 inches. The greens are 3 to 6. Yellows are over 6. Reds are 10 plus. We'll start it at lunchtime today. And notice where all the snow is. Look at the big targeting through Idaho and the Tetons and parts of Montana. And it stays there. Southern Oregon, Northern California as well. This is late on Monday the 3rd. Plume shifts up, really hits central Idaho and also a lot of Montana. Here we are lunchtime on Tuesday. Look at the rest of the Sierra. Here comes our next storm system starting to reload and hit the rest of the Sierra. So this is Wednesday, February 5th. Here's early on the 6th. Here comes the final storm system. This is lunch on the 7th. Drops down, and this one does hit Colorado more squarely. 7 and 8. This is lunch on the 8th, and then it departs and becomes an East Coast storm system. A little bit of leftover snow for Denver in the Front Range there on Sunday, February 9th. And then it's just kind of, wait and see. What's beyond this? Does all that activity in BC drop down? Some of it's gonna. And you can see it happening right there. Okay, my official forecast looks like this. So all of today through the 9th, we'll start in the Wasatch, probably another couple feet to go up in the Wasatch. And again, it's really 2.5 and 2.7, the final two storms that will bring this amount of snow. Up in the Tetons, anywhere from 2 to 3 feet of additional accumulation. A couple of feet up there at Big Sky Bridger Bowl, about a foot in northwest Montana. Look at southern and central Idaho at 3 feet of additional accumulation. It's really good targeting there. Light snows through interior BC and the Pacific Northwest. You've got some moderate to heavy snow coming late in the period, I think around 2.9, which will help to, is really a big part of those numbers that you see right there. But really a good snow continuation there through southern Oregon around Mount Ashland. Shasta continues to get nailed. And eventually a lot of Tahoe and Mammoth with the colder final two storm systems. I think we're going to get to about 3 feet out of both of those in those areas. Colorado, it's really all about the central to northern mountains. And the timeline, again, in Colorado is the best time is probably going to be maybe 2.5, but more so 2.7 and also 2.8 to really accumulate these kinds of numbers. I think we could see 10 to 12 inches, certainly along the I-70 corridor into Summit County, Continental Divide, more up in the northern mountains, less in the southern mountains. Okay, up in the northeast, looking at about a foot of accumulation up here. Some places more, 2.2 through 2.9. And it doesn't all come at once. This is a rolling accumulation with about 3 different storm systems. But good numbers there, even through Massachusetts, a couple of 8s. Snow Ridge gets some lake effect, pushes you up to 18 inches of total accumulation. All right, we'll end on the big western map here. And again, we still have a lot of snow yet to go with this river setup and 2 additional storm systems. It's going to be a little warm before all of this, before the final 2 storms come through, but eventually the temperatures will slowly come down and we'll get better snow production in some places. But some big bullseyes out there, guys. Have fun, enjoy the powder, and thanks for tuning in here.